On the night before Thanksgiving in 1971, a man hijacked a Boeing 727, jumped into a freezing storm somewhere over the Pacific Northwest, and completely vanished. 50 years later, the FBI still has no idea who he was. The operation started at the Northwest Orient Airlines counter in Cortland, Oregon. A man in his mid-40s, wearing a dark suit and carrying a raincoat, paid cash for a one-way ticket to Seattle. He gave his name as Dan Cooper. Once on board Flight 305, he took seat 18C near the back of the aircraft. As the other passengers settled in for a routine holiday trip, Cooper ordered a bourbon and soda. He sat quietly, looking like any other businessman heading home. Shortly after takeoff, he handed a folded piece of paper to flight attendant Florence Schaffner. Thinking it was just a phone number, she dropped it in her pocket. Cooper leaned closer, telling her to read it. The note claimed he had a bomb. To prove it, Cooper opened his briefcase just enough for her to see a battery, wires, and thick red cylinders. He laid out exactly what he wanted: $200,000 in cash, 4 working parachutes, and a waiting fuel truck. He never raised his voice or acted nervous. By issuing extreme threats with total politeness, Cooper locked the crew and 36 passengers into a high-altitude hostage situation without anyone else in the cabin realizing what was happening. Flight 305 spent the next 2 hours circling above Seattle in a holding pattern. While the pilots managed the aircraft, Cooper remained completely calm, continuing to sip his drink and speaking to the flight attendants with quiet courtesy. Down below, federal agents and local police scrambled. They had a massive logistical problem, sourcing $20,000 in $10 bills, the rest in 20s, and securing 4 functional parachutes on a holiday eve. This archival image shows the massive scale of federal record-keeping. Before handing over the money, the FBI rapidly photocopied every single bill, recording over 5,000 serial numbers, ensuring that if this cash ever entered circulation, they could track it. At 5:39 p.m., the plane landed at Seattle-Tacoma Airport. Cooper held up his end of the bargain. Once the canvas bag of cash and the parachutes were brought aboard, he let all 36 passengers walk off a plane. He kept the flight crew behind. The precision of the exchange indicated deep premeditation, suggesting every phase of the hijacking was calculated long before the aircraft landed. Cooper ordered the pilots back into the air. He instructed them to set a course south toward Mexico City, keeping the remaining crew members on board to fly the plane. This aviation schematic shows the exact flight configuration Cooper demanded. He required the pilots to stay below 10,000 feet, keep the landing gear extended, and lower the flaps to 15 degrees. These precise settings forced the jet to fly as slowly as possible. Cooper ordered the remaining crew into the cockpit, locking the door. At 8:13 p.m., the pilots noticed a sudden change in air pressure. The aft air stairs were lowered into the slipstream. He stepped out into a freezing November rainstorm over the pitch-black mountains of Washington state. He was wearing a business suit and loafers, holding a bag of heavy cash, and diving into rugged terrain with 0 tracking equipment. The darkness and heavy rainfall made visual or radar tracking from the ground impossible. By jumping into conditions that pushed the limits of human survival, the man calling himself Dan Cooper effectively erased himself from the sky. As soon as the sun rose, the military and the FBI launched a massive ground search. Hundreds of troops and volunteers spent weeks combing through the dense brush and rugged forests of southwest Washington. They found absolutely nothing. There was no parachute silk caught in the trees, no abandoned briefcase, and no body. The complete absence of physical evidence stalled the investigation entirely. 9 years passed without a single trace. Then in February 1980, an 8-year-old boy was digging a fire pit in the sand along the Columbia River. He uncovered 3 decaying, rubber-banded bundles of $20 bills. Agents took the nearly $6,000 to the lab and checked the serial numbers against their 1971 ledger. It was a perfect match. The decaying bills confirmed that Cooper and the ransom reached the ground. Yet the discovery in the sand provided no physical link to the hijacker's ultimate fate or his final location. Over the following decades, agents interviewed witnesses, tracked thousands of leads, and investigated over 1,000 suspects to identify Dan Cooper. They looked at Richard McCoy, a veteran with a similar hijacking. They investigated Kenneth Christensen, a paratrooper with unusual finances, and Dwayne Weber, who gave a cryptic deathbed confession. But fingerprints didn't match, DNA was inconclusive, and the rest of the marked money never surfaced anywhere in the world. In July 2016, facing an exhausted list of leads, the FBI officially closed the file, redirecting their resources and leaving the search entirely to historians and civilian sleuths. The Pacific Northwest wilderness encompasses thousands of square miles of unforgiving terrain. It is a landscape perfectly suited to swallowing a man and his secrets. To this day, the D.B. Cooper case stands as the only unsolved hijacking in American aviation history. We are left to wonder if he survived the fall to spend his fortune in the shadows, or if the freezing forest claimed him on that stormy Thanksgiving Eve.